Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'll once again be narrating over footage of random garden tasks, as audiences seem to understandably prefer that to my poorly lit face staring awkwardly into the camera for 8 to 10 minutes. Anyway, today I'm revisiting the topic of mulch. Now, mulch is especially important in hot, dry climates like mine, as it helps soil retain moisture and prevents the sun from cooking all the life out of it. Unfortunately, if you're not careful, mulch can also kill your entire garden and render it inhospitable to most crops for months or years. The reason for this, of course, is contamination from broadleaf herbicides, such as those in the aminopyrrolid family. A condensed and highly simplified version of what can happen is this. A producer of straw or hay will apply broadleaf herbicides to a field in order to kill off noxious weeds and other undesirable plants. These compounds are said to be harmless when consumed by livestock. Unfortunately, these herbicides are tremendously effective and resilient. They have long half-lives in the environment and can kill or damage plants in concentrations as low as parts per billion. Further, digestion doesn't render the toxins inert, so even composted manure can be contaminated. There are more than a few anecdotes out there in which well-meaning gardeners applied straw mulch or composted animal manures to their gardens, only to be left baffled when their beans and tomatoes became stunted and deformed. In some cases, this type of herbicide contamination can adversely affect gardens for years. Now, I've pinned a link in the comments that takes a little bit of a deeper dive into broadleaf herbicide contamination. If anyone is interested, they can click that and read something a little more scientific than I can really provide. So what's the solution here? Gardens need mulch, and many of us, particularly us urban gardeners, don't necessarily have the space to grow enough of our own mulch to sufficiently cover our gardens. One option, of course, is to just use wood mulch. It's highly effective, and trees typically aren't sprayed with herbicides. There are, however, some drawbacks to this. For example, if too much wood mulch is churned into the soil, nitrogen sequestration can occur. A good rule of thumb is wood chips are great on a garden, but not in it. This is fairly easy to hold to if all you're doing is transplanting in some started plants like peppers and tomatoes once or twice a year, but it can be difficult to, say, harvest a bed full of potatoes without churning in a good bit of wood mulch. Additionally, wood mulch can make the direct sowed seeds a bit inconvenient. I do have a prior video on the various pros and cons of wood mulch in a veggie garden if anyone's interested, but ultimately there's just some instances in which straw or hay are simply the best mulch options. I recently purchased this bale here from my local Tractor Supply. Now, at $17, this certainly isn't the cheapest way to buy straw, but it's definitely one of the most convenient, as the compressed bales fit in the back of my relatively small vehicle, and I can also grab feed and wood shavings for our chickens in the same stop. I did go to the Stanley company website and found that the only information on their use of pesticide and herbicides on their products was that it's kept to a minimum. I didn't really find this confidence inspiring, so I conducted an informal test to determine if the straw was safe for use on my gardens. I blended a quantity of the straw with some soil and compost, packed it into a cup, and then planted a few sacrificial beans. Beans are highly sensitive to broadleaf herbicides, so I figured if I got a healthy bean or two to grow from the soil mixture, I'd be fine. Here are the results 2 weeks later. Not only is a healthy and vibrant bean seedling doing just fine, a cluster of healthy volunteer tomatoes sprouted up as well. Tomatoes are also highly sensitive to broadleaf herbicides, so I take their presence as a good sign. At this point, I'm feeling fairly comfortable rolling the dice and applying the straw to my gardens. Perhaps I should have waited until a few more sets of healthy leaves developed on my test plants just to be extra sure. But if I start seeing things like plant deformities in the gardens that I use this straw on, I'll plant a retraction video. But like I said, I'm willing to take the gamble that this stuff is fine to use on my garden. It's also worth pointing out that just because this particular bale of straw is seemingly safe, it doesn't necessarily mean every bale from the same supplier is safe. So I plan on conducting a similar test for any additional bales that I might purchase. Alright, since this video is running a bit short and the unforgiving YouTube algorithm favors videos that are at least 10 minutes long, here's what else I have going on in my garden here in mid-September. Now, as I expected, I'm seeing mediocre performance from the second round of tomatoes that I started at the end of June and transplanted into the garden in July. While I'm seeing some fruit develop, the plants largely aren't doing as well as the first round of tomatoes did. And this is to be expected as they were transplanted out into brutally hot conditions and into beds that are probably a bit depleted of nutrients, as I had a whole first round of sauce tomatoes going where these are now. I was really only hoping to get the occasional handful of fresh tomatoes for salads, etc., up until the first frost, and it's looking like that still might happen. And here, the second round of slicing tomatoes I have in these beds, they're looking very robust, but I'm just not convinced they'll have time to set and ripen fruit before the first frost, which we typically get in the end of November. Also, I think I have some kind of tomato disease affecting most of my plants in my garden. I've been seeing a lot of dying lower leaves, and I think, not 100% certain, it might be bacterial spot. This would be far less than ideal, as that particular disease is known to persist from season to season. A little worried about that, and only time will tell. The tomato variety here is perhaps my most successful of my second round of tomatoes. It's called Tidy Treats, and it seems to be producing a decent amount of small fruits. Each one seems to be about a little smaller than a grape. The ones that have ripened so far have proven to be pleasantly sweet and will make a great no prep salad tomato if we get enough of them to ripen. Some of my second round winter squash are actually beginning to rally as temperatures cool a bit. This bush delicata here is loaded with female flowers, but unfortunately, without any male flowers, and I'm not seeing any of them open yet, pollination can't occur. Hopefully, some male flowers and female flowers will open at the same time soon here. These butterbush squash are also starting to take off a bit. If I can keep the whitefly from killing them, which is what happened to my fall squash last year, I might actually get a few extra butternut squash out of them before the frost comes. Unfortunately, some kind of pest effectively killed my acorn squash here. I'm not sure exactly what did it, but something chewed round holes into the stems, and in so doing, irreparably damaged the plants. There's just something about late summer, early fall, and pest pressure. I'm absolutely chomping at the bit to harvest my sweet potatoes, but I'm bound and determined to force myself to wait until at least October 1st. Now, I reached in and pulled out a few sample potatoes a couple weeks ago and found them to still be really undersized. Hopefully, waiting the extra month to harvest will make a difference, and I'll harvest some that are actually decent size here. I've also started work on my fall and winter garden. Here I'm getting some potatoes planted. I got around to this last weekend. I don't think they'll have time to put on any real size before the frost, so I'm growing them specifically to harvest as new potatoes as soon as the plants die off. These are about half Yukon Gold, as you saw a moment ago, and half some kind of red potato from the organic section of the grocery store. I planted 9 pounds of seed potatoes in total. So if I can get, I don't know, say double that harvest, I'll be pretty happy. I'll call it good. Mostly, I just like growing potatoes. They're cheap to buy. I get that. But there's just something really fun about growing potatoes, and I'm always going to do it. I'm also going to be planting out the broccoli, kohlrabi, and Brussels sprouts that I started under grow lights a few weeks ago. I'll be doing this at some point in the next week or two. I thought I was going to be able to do it this weekend, as next week is looking cool, but the way the forecast is now, next weekend for a few days, the temps are supposed to go back up into the mid to upper 90s, which is really just too hot for brassicas. That's about all I've got this time around. Mostly, I am tired of summer, and I am tired of being hot. It's been a tremendously hot summer here, and I am really ready for cool temperatures and maybe a little rain too. So, until next time, let's hope it all doesn't die.